Welcome to The Ripple Within, a podcast by All in One Life Coaching. I'm Michelle, a certified life coach specializing in mindset, emotional wellness, and the law of attraction. I work with people to help create the narrative around their desired outcome.
And I'm Kathy. I'm here to ask the questions, explore the patterns, and share the real life moments that make this all, well, make sense.
This podcast is about the connection between how we feel and the physical reality we experience every day. We'll explore how our thoughts lead to outcomes and how narrative shifts can create big change.
We'll keep it grounded using logic and lived experience, not just theory. And if you've ever wondered why you feel stuck, reactive, or out of sync with yourself, you're not alone.
Our life experience will always match how we feel. This podcast is about exploring our ripple within, how our thoughts, emotions, beliefs, and values contribute to the physical life we live. Let's get into it. Welcome back, everyone. All right, Kathy, what have you got for us today?
I know I'm guilty of this for sure. Reflecting on our language and beating ourselves up.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Do it all the time. And then I get in trouble sometimes from fiance or the people that I love and adore that, if you go, wow, you dumbass, and sometimes, yes, you mean it as a joke and it's just something that, pops out of your mouth. But then there are other times, if you're doing something and you stub your toe, the language may be a little more colorful than and not necessarily a joke, like we do it to ourselves a lot. Yeah, in front of other people, when we're by ourselves, it's
So let's try to get a little bit more specific from a perspective of outside of maybe stubbing a toe or something like that, because we'll talk about that for a second and then we'll get a little bit more specific. But if we stub our toe, obviously that hurts. It doesn't feel good. It would be a natural response to maybe say something that was, bordering rabbit hole kind of talk, whether it's super colorful or not, because it would be illogical to stub your toe and then go, that felt fantastic. Like those two things just don't
yeah,
really align, right?
yeah.
So there's just too much of a difference there. So let's talk a bit more though about some of that self-talk narrative that happens. And we can use a work example or something that you're willing to talk about. But let's talk about what is a narrative that you might be using that doesn't feel good.
I really being really hard on yourself and the language that you use to do that. We have a dog, really two, and a puppy sitting, which is wonderful. But there's things that I can forget in training with Luna, daughter's dog. She'll be almost 2 in August. The dog, not my daughter. And there'll be things that I'll forget. And she'll say things like, remember, mom, remember, mom. And I'll be like, oh. Just the other day, I was playing with Luna and Stax. They don't, Luna wants to play with everything and everybody. Stax is the exact opposite. He's a little teacup dog, wants nothing to do with any other animal on the
Right.
planet except human beings and maybe a stuffy or two. He does not, he's more mature, so he's earned that right. But Luna wants to play with everything. Of course, her paws are, probably the size of his butt. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
he's like, yeah. So we've actually, daughter more than me, getting them to a place where they can be in the same room, chase the same toy, take turns, and not, do you know what I mean? But we were playing the other day. I was playing with both of them, and I was getting, and I actually had a discussion with my daughter about it because I was getting a little frustrated with Luna, and it was more frustration with me because the day before it went great. This day it wasn't going so good. She wasn't responsive to my commands like she was the day before, uh, trying to get her off, leave it. She wasn't doing any of that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
yep. So I picked up Stacks and just kind of left the situation because I don't want Stacks to get hurt either. Like, and Luna just
yeah.
wants to play, right? So she's pawing at him, wanting him to play and do all those sorts of things. And he wanted none of it. And I was super frustrated with myself because I couldn't seem to use the right language to get Luna to back off. So I picked up Stacks and I walked away. And so I was telling Sheena after she got home from her welding test or course or whatever it was. So I was telling Sheena the story, and I was like, what am I doing wrong? Am I using the wrong language? Am I like, what's going on? She goes, Mom, so it's okay to just, kind of take her by the collar and lead Luna away if you have to. But she said, remember, you need to leave on a positive note. You want interactions like that to be positive so that they both want to do it again rather than just, and she goes, no, I get it. Like sometimes she gets frustrated too or whatever.
Sure.
Remember, and I'm like, oh, yeah, like I know that. And in that moment, because I was frustrated, it just went, everything goes out the window. So then I was hard on myself afterwards. Luna goes downstairs with Sheena, and Stacks and I are upstairs, and I'm like, this stuff. You have it written down so that you can review it, when you need to, because she's going to go away and work again. And uh, this. And so then I'm hard on myself for thinking, mm, thinking that I'm maybe doing harm to the training and the work that my daughter has done with her dog, but also I don't want to say harming a dog because I would never in my entire life intentionally on purpose hurt an animal. That's yeah. But thinking that I don't even know how to describe it. So maybe you should just jump in now.
So, I mean, you said a lot there, right?
Yeah.
And just like we talk about here a lot, energy plays a factor in every experience that we have. And animals are way more susceptible to the energy field that we give out over some of even the words that we use before we even recognize it. But for you, though, and specifically for you, what makes you feel like you are doing something wrong as part of the process? I'll give a little bit of context. The dogs were fine, right? They're not biting at each other and trying to eat each other and harm each other. Luna's playing and Stacks is just being because he's a little dog and really doesn't want to have anything of it. But what causes you, do you think, to feel like you need to have perfection on that level?
That's the exact word. It's the same at work. If heaven forbid I make a mistake and it happens, I'm this stuff, you know what you're the process, blah blah blah, and then make a mistake. In almost any, it does. I could be playing ball, and I know we've talked about this before, but yeah, not necessarily a miss hit on a bat because I've started to give myself a little space for that, but making a throw, and yes, that's still in my head. The catches, not so much. Or the stopping, not so much. Still the throwing. And I'm so hard on myself. And I know, I need to stop telling myself that story of being so hard on myself. But it's a lot of people.
Yeah.
in not just in our life experience, but around the world that beat themselves up for the anything. It could be something as simple as two dogs playing together. It could be something as simple as getting crap from your boss at work. Not that that's what happened, but
Yeah.
getting crap from your boss at work, or it could be
So
anything.
what do you think drives that feeling? Like, what do you think you, the human, is happening within you that is creating that response? What is the belief system?
Probably perfection and knowing better, right?
Oh, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so knowing better, it's a little bit tricky, right? Because this life experience, we're learning with every breath that we take, every interaction that we have. We have busy schedules. We're doing something we're not used to doing because we're watching another dog and so there's a whole bunch of other things happening in the process. So why do you think though that or what causes you to believe that you need to have it all so perfect? What is it that you're worried about will happen if you're separating the dogs or if you forget something? Like, what do you think the outcome of that really is going to be?
I think I don't want to affect all of the hard work that Sheena has put into training.
And so that's
Luna's
a
come so far. She's incredible. She tries so hard to play with Stack. She'll go down on the ground and she'll have one of his toys and she'll keep, looking at him and looking at the toy and looking at him like she just wants to play with him so bad and he wants nothing to do with it, which sometimes they'll play and take turns and blah, blah. But I don't I don't want to mess up all of that work that Sheena has done with Luna.
Okay, so which that response makes complete sense to me. But so that would mean that you believe that one misguided step would break everything that already happened.
Yes.
Or, or,
Or yeah.
right, because you just explained
Yeah.
how Luna is just so good and so well trained and this and that. So then you believe that again, that one misstep is gonna cause her to forget everything that she's learned?
No. I mean, my daughter keeps saying, it's a work in progress. We're still working on like, things like recall. She comes, but kind of only when she wants to. And then, she can have a little bit of attitude sometimes. And she'll, you ask her to do something and she'll just sit there and stare at you like, no, I don't want to. Right? You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, but it's
Yeah.
not like we love the dog, but it's not really about the dog. It's about how you're perceiving your interaction with the dog. It's about how you're perceiving what you're doing when it comes to the dog and training and stuff. It goes back to the belief system that you're holding, which is affecting the narrative and the words that you're using around the subject. Now, the subject itself is really quite irrelevant, right? Like we love the dogs and that's wonderful, but really it's not the dogs. That's the reason that we're using at the moment to feel our discomfort. We're using that as our excuse, as we say, because right now we're in a moment of discomfort of either getting it wrong or affecting the training of the dog or right, so it's that narrative that we're using versus, so let me ask it like this: when you hear yourself say, oh my god, like I'm going to mess up this dog's training, like what is happening, what would prevent you from being able to say that differently?
I think some days I probably do. It's going to be okay. She You just got to be repetitive and keep doing the thing. And I think maybe that's a part of my when my daughter goes, okay, I'm gonna go work and get away for 2 months. And I mean, Luna being a puppy and not knowing anything is one thing, right?
Sure.
Luna being almost 2 and having all this wonderful structure and not, and
So,
I don't want her to come home after being away for 2 or 3 months and Luna not responding to her, or Luna not doing the things that she did when she left. You know what that old saying, leave it better than you found it?
sure.
You know what I mean?
So let me ask you this though. What is the agreed upon expectation of your involvement with the dog's training while she's gone?
Just to like maintain. I'm not going to teach her anything new, but I'll maintain. I'll, take her for walks twice a day and do the things with when she meets another dog, when she meets people, and take her to the dog park, take her to puppy daycare once a week. Like, just keep doing all the things that Sheena's been doing. But with that said, there's a lot of stuff that Sheena does with her, and yep, she's made me a page of things. And if I forget something or don't do something one day or one week or whatever, is she gonna come back to? I don't want to say
Yeah, but
chaos, but do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, but why are you creating a narrative of what if I get it wrong? What if I miss something? What if she comes back and it's chaos? What if? So we talk a lot about the what if game. So why is your what if game it turning into a disaster versus what if this is successful? What if we nail it? What if consistency helps me and the dog learn and grow together? And because you're obviously going to be a different trainer than your
yeah,
daughter because you're different people and different ideas. I would say that if somebody's leaving you a list of 100 items of what to do while you're away, that's probably another conversation to have around expectation because you do have a job and you have a life that you live. And albeit it's wonderful that there's a place for the dog to be and in your care, but we have to be really clear on the expectation. And I feel pretty strongly that your daughter isn't expecting perfection, but she's probably expecting some sort of consistency.
right,
And those are two different things because humans, we can't ask ourselves to be perfect. Number one, it's an impossibility because we are always learning, growing, and developing. So when we expect perfection, we are setting ourselves up for failure right out of the hop because there's too many variables. And from this perspective, from a law of attraction perspective, when we are on the fence about something, when we haven't fully agreed or understood the expectations that another might have, we are playing a guessing game. And I mean, not that, and this isn't about keeping secrets, but even if you did forget something one day, are we recording every day for her to have a playback
that's
and
true.
watch when you return? Right? Like, what would drive you and what would cause you to be like, oh, geez, you know what? 4 out of those 5 days, I took 5 minutes longer. Like, why would you even have that conversation? And it's not about withholding information, it's more about humans. Why are we sharing things that are uncomfortable or might get us into trouble to begin with?
Yeah, that's true.
It's not
See,
wrong,
that's
it's
a
not
yeah,
bad.
yeah. No, it's a tiny bit tricky, maybe, just because I mean, I want to be able to tell her everything, that
Sure.
happened. Well, she was gone, and oh, by the way, missed a day of this and, missed a day of that. I mean, it's not
S-
going to feel good, but it also gives her potentially information that she needs to maybe work with Luna on more, or yeah, that one's tough.
It's a tough one, right?
Yeah,
Because and that's what we want to try to understand is what is your reason for doing it? What is the why behind it?
needs to be unconditional. Needs to be,
Well, that
yeah.
and it needs to be in line with what you have the ability to offer. It has to be in line with your own belief system about how you're participating. I mean, if you truly like if you were you have the dog and you wake up in the morning and you're like, "You know what? Today I am going to make that my least priority. I am not going to focus on this animal one iota. I'm going to throw the rules out the window. I'm going to discard all of the training and stuff." You're simply I know for a fact you're not doing that.
Yeah,
You're
yeah,
not, right? Where you're waking up and you're doing the best that you can, and you are gonna follow the instructions for the most part that have been left to you to the best of your ability with an intention. Like, what is the intention?
yeah,
To do the
yeah.
best you can.
That's true. And just to be clear, it's not my daughter's expectations. They're my
Yeah,
expectations, right?
exactly
Like
my
they're
point.
it's it's this
Exactly.
yeah, it's a story I'm telling myself in the head. It's yeah,
Right. Right. And it's
right.
such a good realization to have because more often than not, that's what we're doing on a lot of subjects, not just being a dog sitter for a few weeks or a few months, but on a lot of subjects. We're creating in our heads a disastrous outcome before any of it even started.
True. And then when something not so great happens, then we beat ourselves the hell up for it because
Right.
we knew it was going to happen supposedly right from the beginning,
Well, and that's what becomes tricky
right?
because
Yeah.
those things become less when we do the prep work and we're saying to ourselves, I've got this. I've had dogs my entire life. I do understand training and the importance of it. And this dog is very smart and does listen for the most part. I'm going to do the best I can. I am going to be there for this dog. I'm going to do all of that. And should the dog have a day, then so be it. Tomorrow's a new day.
Right.
When we enter the agreements with that mentality and that belief system, the risk of something going sideways reduces tremendously. One, the story we're telling ourselves it is what creates the future. So if we're planning to have success, what energy do you think the dog feels? Do you think the dog is feeling successful energy or, oh my God, I got to get this right energy, dog, and you've got to listen to me or else I'm going to have to explain this to my kid and it's all just going to be a disaster?
Yeah, let's do the first one.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
right though? Like
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
dog is also recognizing your discomfort. Now, of course, you're not doing it on purpose. You're not like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm going to feel uncomfortable so you, dog, can feel uncomfortable. But just like humans, we respond. Ooh, that just gave me the chills. We
Yeah.
respond to energy. Animals respond to energy, and your state of being is what's dictating the energy. So if this is in worry and concern of failure of watching a dog for a few weeks, then the dog's sitting back going, I don't know what's going on with her, but she feels a little uptight. So I'm just going to, is she asking me to come? She telling me to come? Like, ooh, I don't really know what I should do either here. And then before you know it, we're getting annoyed and frustrated. Certainly the animal is going to feel that too. And then you're going to walk away going, oh, I shouldn't have been so loud, or I shouldn't have barked at myself or the dog, or I shouldn't have, I shouldn't have, I shouldn't have. And then it becomes that vicious circle because we don't get to go back in time and undo it.
True.
All we have is what we're going to do now and next. What's next? What comes up now? And it's that work that you're doing on a very regular basis, especially related to work, like our day jobs, but it's that's the kind of work that we need to do on every subject that we're about to touch. So if it's watching dogs for a few weeks, we want to sort ourselves out before we take action. And when we feel that discomfort of, oh man, I can't have my daughter coming home and this being all sideways, you can just know that that's not going to feel good to say because now you're, "Ugh, I just need to make sure I get it right." It just doesn't feel good to be in that place where you've said that she doesn't have an expectation of
Oh, she
perfection
doesn't,
from
but
you.
I do. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right. You're creating an environment for yourself that you're never going to be 100% successful in.
Set myself up to fail. Yeah.
You really
Yeah.
kind of are in those cases because, and what'll happen is exactly what you said a minute ago. You will get the proof in the pudding where you get to say, see, I knew that was going to happen.
Yeah.
Whereas if we're preparing ourselves, if we're doing the prep work, if we have a list in front of us, if we're practicing the training, if we're really committed to that and we've made notes and we know what our next steps are, the likelihood of you being successful increases. So then we could say, yeah, see, I knew that was going to happen. I was prepared. I had good intentions. I set myself up for success. I created a list. I put a clock or a timer, a reminder on my phone. I did this. I did that. You're going to take away all of the excuses, the ones that we're aware of, so that you can be successful.
It's I find it odd sometimes. And it comes down to what you say about practice. Practice at work, you know, not being reactive, all those sorts of things. And then something personal can happen and it just out the
It's
window.
out the window.
Yeah, it's a,
Goes out
done.
the
Yeah,
window.
like the air conditioning out the window. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yes.
just, yeah, it's just,
Yeah.
it's gone.
And depending on how the workday is going and how other parts of our life experience are going, I mean, I know you have a sore shoulder and a headache as a result of that because you have a kink in the neck. That is going to affect our ability to stay focused in a positive light. So when we're in pain, it's not as easy to go, today's going to be a good day. I'm going to go with the flow. I'm going to do the best I can. I'm going to have fun with the dog. I'm going to experiment. I'm going to be curious. It's harder to do that when we're in pain. But when we do that work, we're no longer in the pain.
But you're right.
We,
This is day two. Normally I wake up and it's thank you. This morning I woke up and it was still, and I'm like, oh shit. Oh
yeah,
shit was my first thought, not thank you.
yeah,
Yeah. So
exactly.
that makes sense. Yeah.
Exactly.
It's
And
purposeful.
again, it's one of those things where you do the work so consistently when it comes to work environment. The work is identical in our personal lives too. We figure out, well, how am I going to show up for this watching of this animal for the next 2 weeks, 3 months, however long it's going to be? How am I showing up for this? And you being able to answer that question, like, how are you going to show up for this animal, for this job that you have around the animal? Are you going to be prepared?
Absolutely.
You're going to be
Absolutely.
prepared,
Yeah.
right? Are you going to love the dog?
Oh, yeah.
Of course, right?
Yeah.
Are you going to feed the dog? Are you going to take the dog for walks? Are you going to do your best to maintain the rhythm, the training rhythm? Of course you are. Yeah. We have to remind ourselves that our intention to achieve a goal, our intention to do that work, that's pretty big.
Yeah. Our intentions are good. Just need to remind ourselves that that's what they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So talk to me about how that feels now. What's the difference now versus earlier?
I it's more practice in personal environment for sure, to remind myself that to go with the flow and you've got this, and it's not like I'm meeting the dog for the first time and just getting handed a list of, what I mean, like around them all the time, have watched, learned. She's taught me so much. I've learned so much. I've taught her a few things, but it's like somebody just dropped the dog off at my door and said, "Here, watch it."
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, you're right. The conversation needs to be, and I think a lot of it depends on your mood. It depends on my mood.
Absolutely.
Yeah, sure. I would. Yeah.
And it's one of those things where and we talk about like how do we really do this? Like how can we knowingly do this type of work? And it is exactly like we said a while ago. When we wake up in the morning, we're setting our intentions for the day. And we might have to do that several times a day because we don't live in a bubble. There are other people, there's other decision makers, there's family, there's pets, there's work, there's getting and going places. And like, there's just so much happening that if we only prepared ourselves first time in the morning and then didn't do it again for the rest of the day, it would become challenging. It is challenging. This life experience is challenging if we don't set really good intentions about who we are and how we're going to participate and how we're going to contribute and so on. And when we have practiced behavior of beating ourselves up for many years, I won't age us, but for many years, when
Yeah.
we have
Yeah.
that practice of doing it, it almost becomes unbelievable to do it differently.
And it's much harder. I I catch myself
Yeah.
say too late. That's bad too. I catch myself too late
The
sometimes.
the
Like,
very fact that you're
yeah,
catching yourself though is never going to be too late. Now I know
yep,
what you
better. Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
Because we're in it and we might
yeah,
say something or
yeah,
respond in a certain way,
yeah.
but that matches where we are in the moment and we're not realizing in that moment that we can be somewhere else. It would be really weird if you were in having a wonderful day, everything was flowing, you were having a great time, super healthy, everything was going smooth, and then just all of a sudden you lost your shit. Like, that's just not gonna happen for people,
Oh,
right?
come on. Damn
It
it.
would be
Yeah.
and it would be equally as odd and weird if you were having a miserable day, vocalizing about it, complaining about it, just over something, and then just all of a sudden like this, be like, "Oh, everything's fine." That would be equally as weird. And quite frankly concerning on a
Right?
much
Yeah.
broader level, right? People need to move up the chain. We really do. And the recognizing that you're even in the rabbit hole is a win. That's a big win. Most of us don't recognize when we're there. We do exactly as most people do. We end up in the rabbit hole over the course of a day or an experience. We keep dipping, we keep dipping. We haven't done anything to move ourselves up the chain. We're just, oh, I'm just, and then we might even pick up the phone and see if we can get somebody else to join this party. Like, I'm in a really bad mood. Let me call my friend and see if she'll come and see if we can get her to my level here. And oftentimes those folks will come too. It's when we're in it We have a realization that we're in it, and then we decide, am I going to remain here? Which again, we can, or am I going to see if I can change the words I'm using in my head or out loud to really what the end result objective is? And we can talk about that specifically where the dog is concerned. Like, what is the end result objective? I assume to return a happy, healthy, well-fed, seemingly well-behaved dog back to her owner.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
And then is there work that we have to do in that process to achieve the goal? Yeah, for sure. Right?
And
Like,
throughout the day, I think that's I know I forget that
yeah,
to, that it needs to be more than just wake up and go, thank you, have a blessed day, and off you go. Right?
yeah.
It needs to be, yeah,
And that's that's really the work, right? So when we feel ourselves, and every human being knows when we're in a bad mood.
yeah,
It's the opposite of when we're in a good mood. And our bodies tell us that. Our bodies tell us when we're not feeling good. And if our bodies don't tell us, somebody in front of you might. The person in front of you might actually say, "Whoa, like you are, what's going on with you today? You
yeah,
seem a little bit off," right? Like,
yeah,
so either we notice ourselves or somebody else's face is going to tell you, or your own. Like
yeah.
when we look in the mirror, we know when we're not feeling good. We can see that reflection. So then it really does become for us, what ownership, what accountability am I going to put on myself to feel better? Right?
And don't beat myself up for forgetting some of this stuff we've talked about today.
No,
Right?
no. Right. Well, and
Yeah,
ultimately it really does have to be your words for you, right?
yeah,
And we've said this over and over and over again. There's just nobody that knows better for you than you. Right?
sure.
So what can you say to yourself when you feel yourself or hear yourself say, or if you say it out loud, like, "Ooh, what if I screw this up?" You're going to know it. You're going to be, wait a minute. I just heard myself say, what if I screw this up? Mm, What if I get this right? Like, wait a minute here. Like, I'm not planning to make a mess of this. Like, no, I'm actually planning to, as a matter of fact, you're probably the extreme in planning to get it right,
Yeah,
right? Or to do it well rather versus right or wrong, right? But that's who you are at your core. You want to do a good job. You want to have a healthy relationship with everybody around you. Like, that's just who you are. So when we say words to ourselves of, "Ooh, oh, this could go sideways," you are just creating an environment turmoil within yourself because your well-being knows that you've got this.
and for no
Your
other reason than making it up in my own head, right? Yeah,
Exactly. And that comes a lot, again, as we said, from practice behavior, practice narratives that we've been saying our entire lives, other people giving their opinion. Right? Like you might have somebody in your experience that you're talking to and you're like, "Oh, I've got this dog to look after." And they're looking at you going, "Oh my God, that's a responsibility." Like, "Whoo, that's a lot on your plate. Whoo, I don't know if I could do it. Whoo." And then before you know it, you're like, "Oh, I didn't even think of those things." Like, I was only beating myself up. Now I'm taking your words and I'm just running with that too. Right?
yeah.
Like,
That's how the world rolls sometimes. That's for sure. Yep. Yeah.
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 And the way law of attraction works is when we are dipping into the rabbit hole, law of attraction isn't going, "Hey, Kathy, I can tell right now in the moment you're not feeling good. Why don't you try to see if you can go over here and do this thing?" Law of attraction is going, oh, you're in the rabbit hole. Remember that time, 6 years ago when you yelled at that guy in traffic and you were a total a-hole, and then do you remember that time that you couldn't find that stuff and do you remember and oh, by the way, I'm going to give you something wholly new to create now from the rabbit hole because that's where you are. So law of attraction's doing its job. It's going, you're in the rabbit hole, I'm going to give you more. You're in the upper end of the bucket, I'm going to give you more. Well-being, while you're in the rabbit hole, is calling you to feel better. When you're feeling good, well-being is going, this is fantastic, you're on fire, keep going, let's do this, let's do that. Well-being's never wavering from you feeling better. Law of attraction doesn't care. It's like, you're in a rabbit hole? Touche, sister. I've got a whole bunch of stuff where this comes from. You're
Mhm.
feeling good and optimistic. Law of attraction's going, touche, sister. I've got a whole lot where this comes from.
As we bring this episode to a close, bottom line, give ourselves a break, change the narrative, change the language, change the issue.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all of
Yeah.
that. Yeah, 100%, right? Pay attention to how we're feeling. Set yourself intentions to check in with yourself several times a day. How am I doing? How am I doing? I have this new task I'm going to do. Ooh, where am I at? I feel pretty good. Dive in. I have this new task to do. I am miserable. Now's not the time to dive in. Now's the time to do the work to get yourself in a position that's at least satisfied before you take the next step. And the only way human beings can do that is by changing the language we're using in here. That might mean again, I have to turn off the news and go for a walk and take a breath and look at what I wrote down and check my notes and make sure I have a list of the things that I'm going to do that I can check off. Like there's obviously work in that too. Before we close out, and for you specifically, where you were at the top of this episode versus where you are now. And I have one other question. Explain that to me, that part to me, and then I have one other question.
Definitely on the opposite end of where I started. For sure. For
Amazing.
sure. Sure.
Amazing.
Yeah. And I'm
Amazing,
gonna
right?
make some notes in my book when we're done. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely different. Yeah.
I mean, that's fantastic, right? Like
Yeah.
that's the whole point of doing a little bit of this work is we recognize that we're in the rabbit hole, we have a bit of a conversation, we come out of the rabbit hole, and we have new language that we can use now that number one is also more accurate and more truthful. It is more accurate that you're going to be successful than that this is going to go sideways because you're doing all of that other work. So my final question before we close out is we've been here for just over, I'm not even sure what time we're at, but half hour, 40 minutes, something like that. And I do know that you've had a sore neck and a sore shoulder. Have you felt it in the last 30 minutes?
Once, twice. Once when you mentioned it, that's when I mentioned it. Otherwise, just been doing our thing. Yeah.
Otherwise, we didn't notice.
True.
And it didn't go away. I mean,
Nope.
as soon as we
Nope.
talked about it, it
Yep.
reminded us that it was there.
Yep.
And that's kind of a reminder that because we were doing some work as part of this to
Yep.
come up the chain, we didn't notice anymore.
I love that so. I love it so
Very good.
much.
Very good.
Final thoughts, Michelle?
I mean, I appreciate you. Thank you for being here today. This is so much fun for us to do and to touch on these
Yes.
subjects. And again, for anybody out there, and if anybody out there might want to come on one of these and take part in this, certainly leave a comment below and we'll get you on here one way or another. And if somebody wants to learn and get some information about how this works, we'd be happy to have you.
Absolutely. If any of our listeners have any questions or comments, leave those below. And hey, if you'd like to be on the podcast, maybe pop us your email address. We'll get in contact with you and off we'll go. Until next time, thanks, Michelle.
Thanks, Kathy. Thanks, everyone.